Lent has arrived, and here we are. It's a fascinating statement that more of us come to Mass on Ash Wednesday, though it's not a holy day of obligation, than of almost any other time in our liturgical year. And then we embark in an act that seems to directly contradict what we just heard in the Gospel. We stick stuff on ourselves to tell the world that we're fasting and giving alms and praying and making sacrifice, after Jesus just told us to do all that in secret. What's that about? Well, in a very real way, we're not contradicting Christ's admonition to us. We're seeking the true depth of what he was calling us to. See, as he speaks of the Pharisees and the hypocrites in their fasting and prayer and almsgiving, he's critiquing them for making it all about themselves. They're not authentically giving for the sake of trying to love someone else. They're not authentically praying to try to convert their heart to align with the will of God in their life. They're not fasting to understand the profound dependence that every moment of their life has being held in God's love and mercy. They're doing all those things so that people will look at them and think how important they are. But we, gathered here today, as we prepare to place ashes on ourselves, we make a public statement, not of what we have accomplished, but what we know God accomplishes in us. It's a statement to the world about God's power and love and saving grace. And the fact that we know that we cannot accomplish anything without him, but that we are profoundly dependent on his love, sustained in his mercy. It's a pretty profound statement of humiliation if you actually think about it. What it means to have gone through your day bearing a mark on your head that not only states that you are a follower of Christ, but that you are a follower of Christ because you need to repent and believe in the gospel. That you are a follower of Christ because you recognize your smallness, that you are dust and to dust you shall return. If we really think of the significance of those words, in one moment they can seem kind of crushing and depressing, and oftentimes when we enter into the Lenten season, that's what we think of. I don't know too many people that get excited because Lent has arrived. And yet if we understand the spirit of what that means, it's actually a spirit of liberation. It's a spirit of freeing ourselves from all the stress and the worry of what we have to control, what we have to accomplish, what we have to direct, what we have to achieve, and to recognize that in the grander scheme of creation, we may be remarkably insignificant, and yet, in the midst of that, are profoundly loved by the God who made us. That salvation, the world, is not dependent on us, it's dependent on him. And the more we trust in that, the more we open our hearts in prayer to say, Lord, this is what is bearing upon me, and yet I trust that you will sustain me. The more we sacrifice things in fasting to know that he continues to hold us and to nourish us and to nurture us in spite of everything else. Then the more we can give freely, knowing that all that we have and all that we are isn't even ours, but was always his. Today is the day that we recognize and that we celebrate that the lies that the world tells us that our value is dependent on our achievements, on what we possess, on what we have, on what we do, on what we accomplish, is not true. Our value is dependent on the fact that we are loved by the one who made us. and that it is He who accomplishes all good things through us. And that we have the humility, the honesty, the authenticity to say, I am very small, but in my smallness, there is great love. I may testify to the world that truth with what I place on myself. But it is not a testament of my holiness. It's a proclamation of God's greatness. And so as we enter into Lent, let us do so with joyful hearts, knowing that this is a time where we intimately encounter God's sustaining love. So in the midst of all the crosses, all the struggles, all the sufferings we know, in the midst of all of life, we can trust in His sustaining grace.